So the big news story that's been occurring this week is Representative Steve King and how he's supposedly a racist. What he said was that he doesn't understand what's wrong with terms like white supremacist and white nationalist. When did those turn? And that's being used to smear all sorts of people on the right as racist bigots, like from Donald Trump to Trump voters to other Republicans in Congress. Now, Steve King has been called out by most of his Republican colleagues that said this is inappropriate. Some are demanding to censure him. They've already kicked him off all committees, so he's basically hamstrung as a politician. There's not much he can have influence over other than just straight up or down votes. Now, this is being used to say that somehow this is indicative of the Republican and they're all racist, etc. This is ridiculous, and it actually shows a crazy double standard. We see people on the left that are connected to all sorts of things like anti Semitism, but that's considered perfectly acceptable, and they're never asked to denounce it. For example, Louis Farrakhan, who is someone who a couple weeks before the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting came out and said that he's not calling Jews the enemy or anything. He's calling them, he's not an anti-Semite, he's anti-termite. So he's linking Jews to termites. And he said all kinds of things about how Israel doesn't deserve to be a country, why the Jews are terrible. He's been pictured with everyone from Bill Clinton. He was put around with Keith Ellison, who was the second in command of the DNC. Now he's the Attorney General of Minnesota, I believe. All sorts of members of the Congressional Black Caucus. You've had people like Linda Sarsour, who said all sorts of anti-Semitic things, who's was at the swearing-in ceremony of the new Congresswoman Tlaib, and with other people that led the Women's March. We're now finding out that the Women's March itself was founded on anti-Semitism, but the left-wing media and the left-wing politicians refuse to cover it or refuse to remove themselves from this. And with the left, it's always, oh, our bad. We could stand with a blatant racist or a blatant anti-Semite like Farrakhan, and that doesn't mean that we fully endorse him, and the left media will never hold their feet to the fire. But if David Duke, the KKK leader, says, yeah, I like Trump, Trump needs to be asked 100 times, do you denounce David Duke? Do you denounce David Duke? Now, was Trump ever standing in a picture next to David Duke? Of course not. But we see this with Farrakhan. All these, not just that Louis Farrakhan said, I like Barack Obama, or I like Bill Clinton, or I like Keith Ellison. We actually see them attending meetings that he was at, getting photo ops with them, things like that. And they're always just like, oh, no, we don't endorse that part of it, but it's cool. And no one calls them out for this. We saw the same with Obama with Reverend Wright, where supposedly Obama's people contacted Reverend Wright and said, could you please keep quiet about knowing Obama because your racism and extremism is showing through and it's affecting Obama. That's where Obama went to church. And it's not just anti-Semitism. You have to couch it in that because people on the left don't think that it's actual racism a lot. I shouldn't be holistic there. But a lot of people on the left don't think it's actual racism when you denounce white people, or they don't think it's bigotry when you denounce men. That's part of the Democratic platform. As bad as Steve King is, and don't get me wrong, I do think, by the way, think these comments are bad. I do think they're at least worth investigating. He should be allowed to try to explain himself, but come on, dude. You don't know why white supremacist is bad? It's bad in the same sense that black supremacist is bad, or black nationalist. But again, the left doesn't feel that way. They think black nationalism, it's not that big of a deal, not compared to white nationalism. And when we look back, so we look and see all these people on the Republican side saying, no, we denounce Steve King. We denounce Steve King. Show me anyone on the Democratic side. Show me them. Show me the media calling for Democrats to denounce Keith Ellison or to denounce Tlaib for her connections to Sarsour or to denounce Bill Clinton with sitting next to Farrakhan or to denounce the members of the Congressional Black Caucus that met with Farrakhan. Where are the calls for that? None. The media doesn't care. They're perfectly fine with it. And like I was saying, when you talk about racism against whites or bigotry against men, show me classes, university curriculum that have courses that are about the evils of black men or the evils of women. They don't exist. We holistically, as a culture, and keep in mind, the left controls 90% of these cultural institutions, they holistically are against white supremacists. And that's, you can see even the majority of conservatives are. That's why the outrage about what Steve King said, rightfully so. But where's that same outrage when it's geared to the left? We find it perfectly acceptable to say that this is a tyrannical patriarchy that's controlled by evil men. No problem with that. We have no problem with people running for DNC leadership standing up saying, my job's to keep white people out of power. We need black people in power. We have no problem with that racism. We have no problem with the bigotry of the Democratic Party denigrating men all the time. Denigrating men all the time. I mean, learn to speak English, right? No problem with any of that. We have no problem with the Farrakhans and others of the world disliking white people. We have no problem saying that all Trump supporters are racist. Democrats doing that, or the majority of them. or that they're afraid of brown people. No problems with any of that. No one's ever asked to be held account for these positions because it's deemed under the veil of cultural Marxism, which the Democratic Party is now running. There are oppressors and oppressed. White, and it's based on all these immutable characteristics, like race. White people are oppressors, so it's okay to go after them. Men are oppressors, so it's okay to go after them. And we're constantly seeing at this point that Jews are oppressors that are seen, so it's okay to go after them. Yet despite all this, despite this message from mainstream Democrats in positions of power, hanging around with people like Farrakhan, who calls Jews termites, Trump got the blame for the synagogue shooting. That was that the shooter didn't like Trump. He didn't like his policies because he was buddied up with Israel. No one questioned, wait a minute, what about the Democrats' anti-Israeli rhetoric? What about their anti-Semitic rhetoric and the people they pal around with? So I just think it's a stark difference how at least, yes, you're always going to have disgusting racist on all sides, period. And yes, if you didn't know, it needs said, you could be racist against someone regardless of what their race is. It's not like you can't be racist against white people or you can't be bigoted towards men. Of course you can. So we'll see those in all sides. At least on the Republican side, you see those people trying to rein in some of that and actually calling out people when they engage in racism. But you don't see that in the Democrat side. So, all right, please hit the subscribe button below if you like it. There'll be a little circle with my face in it. Hit that. Like this video if you do and recommend me some other people. And all right, have a good one.